Hello, my name is Ross Lintow. I'm part of Raymond's marketing team, and I'm here today with Aaron Meadows and Phil Koster to talk about passwords and why they are so important to have strong and secure passwords for your organization. So thank you, Aaron and Phil, for both being here today. Really looking forward to talking about this conversation. I know cybersecurity is a hot topic right now and on the top of the mind of a lot of organizations. So this is a really important conversation to be talking about, and glad to have the experts here with us today. So to get started with the conversation, let's just kind of jump into it and talk about how important is it to have a strong password policy for your organization, and why are strong passwords important? Um, Aaron, I'll throw it over to you first if you want to take it away.
Sure, thanks. So I think a strong password can kind of be summarized as like your first line of defense for cybersecurity. It's the first thing that they're going to try. And it's really, a lot of the services that we use start with a password. So it's very important that that password is secure and unique among the services that you use. I think that pretty much sums up how important the password can be and kind of how we rely on it to protect our systems.
Yeah, of course. Phil, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that when we talk about user identities, that is essentially a door to your business. And if you think about the analogy of having an actual storefront, the people that walk up are who you think they are, and you let them in. If they're not who you think they are and you let them in, then you have a problem. And they can do whatever they want once they're in. And passwords are one of the ways that we verify the identity of each person coming up, kind of like checking the ID at the door.
Yeah, that's an awesome visual. I like that visual. I think that will resonate with a lot of people. Kind of, you wouldn't let someone in if you didn't know them in a storefront. And so why would you do the same in a, cyber space? So that's a really great point that you made. So I have a visual that I wanted to bring up and was hoping that we could kind of talk a little bit about this visual. So let me share my screen and pull that up. So here we're looking at kind of 2022, the time that it will take a hacker to break into your systems based on your password. So I was hoping you guys could respond a little bit to this. First, just how accurate is this visual? And I'll let either one of you respond first, Phil or Aaron.
I can go ahead and give my thoughts on this first. So
Sure.
This diagram is based off of a site called How Secure Is My Password? And it's a I wouldn't say it's generic, but it doesn't take into account a lot of the different things that can be done to a password as far as dictionary attacks and things like that. So, but what it does do is it has some criteria that it uses to determine how strong a password is. And as you can see on the chart, the longer the password gets, the more secure it is, and not necessarily the complexity of the password. So as you can see, a 4-character password with a lot of numbers and lowercase symbols and special characters and things like that doesn't necessarily make it a secure password. So as you increase the length, that increases the entropy, or how long it's going to take to crack that password. Now, if you're using just letters, that is much easier to guess than something that has a combination of letters, numbers, special characters, and that is also represented in this graph. So I think it's a good visualization of how password complexity can affect how strong your password is, but it is not by any means like the end-all be-all chart that this is what you can go by.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's great advice. And Phil, anything to add?
Yeah, the one piece I would add, Aaron did mention that this isn't the end all be all, and there's a lot of variables, and one of the biggest variables is password reuse. There have been a number of high-profile hacking incidences, like LinkedIn several years ago got hacked, and the passwords for their entire user community were leaked.
Mhm.
And that means the hackers have an email address and a username that they can go right to.
Mhm.
And so if you're using a password and email combination that's been in one of these recent breaches, the time to crack is instant. It doesn't matter how long or how complex. If it was revealed in a breach, it's going to be instant. So
Okay.
you got to keep that in mind, that you don't want to reuse your passwords too much across different sites, because if any of them get hacked, then there will be a little gap between when the hack actually happens and when it gets published, and you
Mhm.
won't know. And the hackers can take advantage of that short window to go ahead and log into anything else they can find.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like it's not just about having, these super complex passwords, but it's also about making sure you have a variety of passwords, if I'm understanding correctly, not reusing the same super complex one over and over again. If that's correct, kind of making sure you're using multiple different passwords.
That is correct. One tactic a lot of people use, they will try and remember 3 or 4 or 5 different passwords, and they use one for the bank and they're really, really secure things. And then they have another password they use for the things they don't care as much about. And unfortunately, there's a limit to our human brains on how much we can remember. And that rolls into using a password vault to help you remember the different passwords across all your different sites.
Hmm.
Password vaults are very helpful. They integrate with the web browsers. Many of them have mobile clients, so you can use them on your phone. They will often have a password generator built in, so you don't have to think about how to create that password anymore. And it will remember and enter your usernames and password for you. And there's a lot of very reputable ones with pricing ranging from free to is the highest I know of is about $20 per user per month, depending on what you want to go with, and whether it's personal, enterprise, small business, those kind of things. And for those that don't know, when I say password vault, I'm talking about things like LastPass, 1Password, Bitwarden, Dashlane, and there's many, many more out there.
So those would be something that would kind of help you keep track of all the passwords, correct? Because looking at that graph, to me, I'm thinking with super, complicated passwords and trying to have a variety of them, how do you remember all of them? So that's what something like that would help you kind of keep track of all that, correct?
That's correct. I was recently reading an article that said the average enterprise user has 11 different passwords they have to remember just for work. And then when
Yes.
you add that to all the passwords that you have to remember for your personal life and all the ones for work, it's really not feasible to keep up with all that. And so the password vaults keep track of the website, the username, the password. Some of them will also integrate with the multi-factor solution. If you have like a bank that texts you a code, some of the password vaults have those kind of features built in so that you don't even have to necessarily go off to another location somewhere. And then you just have the one password to remember, which is the one to get in your vault.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question to you. As someone who doesn't know a lot about this, I'm thinking, well, what would happen if the vault were to, get penetrated by a threat actor? Has that ever happened? Is that a possibility, or what would that look like for someone else possibly thinking maybe I want to use one of these password vaults, but what if that were to get compromised?
Yeah, so the password vault really is the if you go back to the building analogy, that's the key ring that's got the keys to every single door in the building. They can get into anything at that point. Most of them are able to use multi-factor authentication to help secure them, just
Hmm.
to add an extra layer of security. But that is definitely the one you want to protect the most. They are very, very secure though, especially if you take a look at some of the ones I just mentioned. There's lots of sources that have ratings on them. Many of them are even certified for use with Department of Defense functionality, all the way up to that level. So they can get very, very secure, and they know they're a target. And so they set up their defenses way better than anybody else out there. Their network defenses that those password vault managers use is really, really good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and sounds like a really great solution to kind of help remember all that. So, oh, go ahead.
Can I just chime in here for a second? Not to
Yeah, of course.
maybe ease some concerns about storing everyone's password on the internet, right?
Yeah,
So
please.
you can look into this for LastPass and Bitwarden and the other ones that all operate very similarly. Is they don't know your password. So when you store the password in the vault, it's stored in an encrypted method, and they have the only way to unlock that vault is with your password. So they don't even know your password. If they get compromised, the password is stored encrypted, so it cannot be retrieved. I mean, it is encrypted, so technically it could be decrypted with enough time and the right technology and things like that, but it's a very low risk because they don't keep those encryption keys. You know, there's no way for them to get access to the password. So for example, if you forgot your master password to the vault, your passwords are gone. Like they cannot assist with you or help you get those passwords back. So that kind of ties into making sure that that password that is for the vault is secure. So it's going to be a relatively long password, but it should be something that you can remember. And so kind of on that same note, the way I try and create a secure password that I need to remember that I'm going to be typing in frequently is you know, maybe have a phrase, right? Like, you know, my favorite dog is, or the cat ran across the street, or what, and then grab, you know, maybe the first or last letter of each one of those words. And now you have your random characters, throw some numbers in there, and maybe, you know, add a mix of your, like your birth year and your last four of your phone number. So it's not anything that could be looked up. And so you combine all that together and you get a password that's quite long and random and something that only you can know, and you can't find it on a social media page. It's not susceptible to a dictionary attack where they can just start plugging in words and trying to unlock your password. So that's a kind of a good tip to generate a password for that vault.
Yeah, that's an awesome tip. I never thought about doing that with like a phrase. So that's a really cool idea, having like a phrase and taking the first letters. I really like that. So thank you, Aaron. So, you know, we've talked a little bit about why passwords are important, and we taken a look at that visual and kind of talked about the feasibility of remembering all the passwords and some tools to help remember all those passwords. So for our audience viewing right now, what would be your guys' advice on next steps for making sure that their own passwords are secure in their organization, and also making sure that their teams have secure passwords? So for leaders or C-suite level executives in an organization, what would kind of be your guys' advice to them on what they can do as far as implementing a strong password policy and how to get their teammates on board? Because I think, you know, that's sometimes the biggest pain point is we know these things are important, but actually getting people to follow through and stick to a policy or follow it can be difficult. So if you guys could offer any advice on kind of how to onboard your team to these kinds of things, that would be great.
So I'll kick off with the one concept that we've been pushing very hard. It's actually a misconception that we've been pushing very hard to break here at Raymond, and that is that cybersecurity is a business risk. It is a technological platform, but it is a business risk, and the business needs to do a proper risk analysis and determine what their levels of risk are and how much effort they're willing to put into minimizing those risks. Just like you would put in sprinkler systems and fire alarms and all kinds of things like that in a building, you know, you have to look and see what those risks are. And if you're in the C-suite, ultimately these are going to fall down to you. If there is a breach, it is usually a member of the C-suite that's going to be on the news trying to explain why they lost all their customers' data. If there are breaches and you are found at fault because you did not do due diligence, the business can be very heavily fined in many sectors. You can often be found responsible for the damages and have to file an insurance claim that is going to be very heavily fought by the insurance company who doesn't want to pay out. So this is a business risk. And if you're at the C-level, that's your job, is managing business risk and trying to stay on top of that. So you evaluate the risk and then you create a policy. And if you need help creating the policies, if they don't make sense, you can always bring in consultants like Raymond. But there's a lot of guidance there. And if you have any technical staff, they're probably fairly well versed in what a good password policy probably looks like. So it starts at the top.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil, for that great insight. Anything to add to that, Aaron?
As far as what to do next and things like that. So on a personal level, the biggest thing I think is making sure that your passwords are unique across environments. Like you're not logging into your office computer with the same password you use to log into your bank account, right? So those are things that you can change right now and kind of limit your exposure. If your Gmail account got hacked, they shouldn't be able to use that same password and to log into your office computer or to log into your bank account. So that's something that can be taken care of pretty quickly because you can obviously just change your password. Obviously, changing your password on your computer may be a little bit different depending on IT policy and things like that, but there shouldn't be any overlap between the password policies or passwords you use on your personal stuff and what you use on your company computer. And if those passwords need to be remembered, you can start off with a password manager. Obviously, you need to check with your IT team to make sure that they do allow password managers, because that may not be allowed on the system. But that is something that you can start creating those unique passwords and then storing them in the vault and increase your password security that way. And then as far as making sure people use secure passwords, that's really going to be based on policy. So you can talk to people. Education is going to help and make them understand that a strong password is good for them, good for everybody, good for security. But if they're allowed to create a 7-character password and that's what they can log in with, that's what they're going to do. It's just the path of least resistance. So having a policy in place that enforces a certain password criteria is going to go a long way to making sure that people actually use a secure password.
Yeah, definitely. That all makes sense. I think you guys have both given such great advice. I know even just listening today, I've learned a couple things that I've never thought of. So I'm sure that that's going to resonate with our audience as well. Do you guys have any last closing thoughts or anything else that you guys want to add about passwords and password policies? I'll let you guys close it out here.
Thanks, Ross. I appreciate that. And anybody has any questions, they're always welcome to contact Raymond. We've got lots of smart engineers that are perfectly capable of helping you and giving you some advice to lay out a roadmap.
Yeah, appreciate your guys' insight on it. And I'm sure our audience will as well. So thank you guys both for joining today. Appreciate your time.